and thank you everyone for attending today. And for those who are watching the recording, thanks for doing that as well. I am delighted to have my second year of teaching Research Poster 101 for HLA. Updated the slides from last time, so if you're here last time, it's a little different, but much the same. And I want to start off by saying I've done a few poster sessions and had some good things come from them, but by no means do I know everything. So we can do some learning together, and I'm happy to meet with people briefly later on as you work on your poster. If you want to chat for a little bit, I'll have my email address at the end of the slides. I did that with a couple people last year, and it was really fun. So schedule permitting, I would love to do that as well if you have further questions after this that we don't answer in this session. So, no, there we go. Today's content I'm taking from NYU Library's LibGuide, How to Create a Research Poster, and then from my own experience as well. So if you see things in quotes from their LibGuide word for word, but also from my experiences. So their definition of this genre of academic presentation is posters are widely used in the academic community, and most conferences include poster presentations in their program. Research posters summarize information or research concisely and attractively to help publicize it and generate discussion. The poster is usually a mixture of a brief text mixed with tables, graphs, pictures, and other presentation formats. At a conference, the researcher stands by the poster display while other participants can come and view the presentation and interact with the author. So basically, your research, your projects, your things that you've done, you can put together in a simply designed, or you can make it more technical if you want, format that I'll show you a couple of examples of today. And then you put it up at a conference, whether virtual or in person. And if it's virtual, you're probably in a Zoom room and people are wandering up and you're just kind of talking to them about your poster, depending on the format. I've done that before, and that's fun. But if you're in person, you feel a little bit like a person at a mall kiosk who's trying to sell you like a nail kit or something like that, because you're standing in front of your poster and people are gingerly walking around, not really making eye contact. But they might wander up, and luckily for HLA, it's really friendly and it's not awkward like some other conferences. So it's a friendly crowd who's really excited to talk to you about your research, and it's really, really nice environment. And I'll have some pictures from HLA's poster session later in the slides. So a little bit about me. Here's a poster that I presented at LMCC 2022, but I've done 4 poster sessions, and then I've attended several, dozens, but I presented at the American Library Association in 2021 and 2022. In between that, I presented at the Hawaii Library Association, a poster there, and in 2021. And then in Indianapolis, I went to the Library Marketing and Communications Conference in 2022 and presented this poster right here, which ended up being a big success, and I'll talk about why in a little bit. So poster sessions are a great opportunity. If you're new to academia, or if you have an idea that's kind of not quite ready to write up for an article or something like that, but you want to talk about your research, you want to talk about your ideas, this is a great opportunity to interact, to get involved, and to get feedback on your work. So the photo above interact is from the American Library Association conference in Chicago a couple summers ago. And this poster session was totally crowded, but this is how a lot of them look. And people just wandering up and wanting to talk about your ideas. The one in the middle is from the BYUH Undergraduate Research Conference that I'm the co-chair of. So students from all disciplines presenting their research and having people wander up, and they even got prizes for top research for that one. And then some of you might recognize your classmate if you're a LIS student. The one on the right is from the Hawaii Library Association 2023 annual conference. And that is a poster that I helped that student a little bit with her design. So what makes a good poster? Here's what NYU Library says, and I want you to kind of keep track of these. I know it's a lot of bullet points, but you could refer back to this later. You don't have to memorize it all. but keep track of them a little bit because I'm going to show you some very bad examples that I've done and some decent examples that I've done. I don't know that I've ever made the perfect poster, but I've definitely learned a lot along the way. And when I was reading what NYU Libraries thinks makes a good poster, I was chuckling to myself and thinking, I should have read this before I did my first couple posters. So important information should be readable from about 10 feet away. Yes, font matters. If you're a nerd like me and you really like fonts and you like talking about fonts, we can talk about fonts, but you should be able to read it from 10 feet away. The title is short and draws interest. Oh boy, I can't wait for you to see one of my posters. The title is so long. And it wasn't great, but I love a long title. But I agree, it should be pretty short and draw interest. The word count is about 300 to 800 words, and this could vary. We're in library land, so ours will be a little more designy if you want, if that's even a word. In the sciences, there's quite a few words on their posters, and they have a slightly different format for like biology, chemistry, things like that. So it just depends what genre you're in. Posters will look a little differently. Text is clear and to the point. Use of bullets, numbering, and headlines make it easy to read. I agree. Sometimes it's nice to have a little paragraph of text, but usually a poster is telling us like, what's the main takeaway from your research? What are the best practices? And so bullet points really do the trick there. Effective use of graphics, colors, fonts, absolutely. You want to be eye-catching, you want to be readable. Think about the usability guidelines and ADA and things like that, but you can be a little more design savvy than ADA sometimes allows for. But just think about a consistent and clean layout, and include acknowledgements and your name and institution affiliation. So let's evaluate. Thinking about this right here, this criteria. This next poster that I gave you a little glimpse of, and we're going to go back to, is a poster that Haley Kearns and I, if you were in our day and age in the LIS program at UH, you know Haley, she's now a librarian in New York State, just making dreams come true over there. But we put together a poster based on a presentation we did at the Infolet conference here in Hawaii. So we took the feedback from our presentation and we made a poster, and we thought, why not just submit our idea to ALA? And we got so excited that we got in that we put every bit of information that we had on this poster. First of all, is this a short title? Thumbs up, thumbs down, reaction if you want. It's a long title. Focusing academic library outreach at the center of campus revitalization in an age of misinformation. That's pretty long. Let's see, what were some other hints here? Should be readable from 10 feet away. I mean, can you read all of this? Not necessarily. You'd have to walk up to it, right? Let's see what else. Word count definitely exceeded it, I'm sure. The text is clear and to the point. If you read the headlines, yeah. Use of bullet numbering and headlines to make it easy to read. We tried. Effective use of graphics, color, fonts, consistent, clean layout. So let's see. We had some ideas going on. We had campus revitalization on one side, information literacy on the other side, combating misinformation underneath that one, and centering the library. So campus revitalization and centering the library, combating misinformation through information literacy. Seems like almost 4 topics going on here. We could have cut this in half and still maybe had too many words on there. We tried to make it, more interesting by putting a photo of students interacting at the library, having some text boxes, having some bullet points, having some graphics, but we just put a ton of information. And so too many words. The title's too long. There's too much going on. So here's some better examples. This is from the Hawaii Library Association conference. Dr. Wertheimer has is he the official or the unofficial HLA photographer? I don't know, but he has a Flickr page that I borrow from all the time, and I credit him here. So this is a student who is presenting, and they have a lot of words too, but it's just better than this. It just is. It's got consistent format, like they suggest with the NYU Libraries LibGuide there. It's got a good title. It's not too long, you know, it's got information there in the title, not too long. It's got their name. If I like crop this photo to just include the poster, you'd be able to see, you know, the fonts and things a little bit easier, but I wanted to give this student credit, this presenter credit. They have good text boxes that follows, like, they're not all the same size, but they're within the same grid, which is really nice. Their fonts look consistent. They consistently have a label that's highlighted at the top of each one. And they have some good graphics in there so that it's, you know, since they didn't have a chart or a photo, they have some interest on there with the graphics and a pleasing color. And it's readable. So that's a great example. Here's another great example. Mara, do you see yourself? This is from another student that presented, and this is fun. See, in library world, we can get a little more funky with our design, you know? And so Kylie's great. She's got, you know, was able to be a little more artsy with the design for this one. And she's got a very catchy short title. I'm like, but not fakey fiction. Okay, I'm interested. What is this about? Tell me more. With her name on the bottom, you know, it's obvious that it's about libraries or books or something from the images on the bottom. She's got some book covers there to go along with the text. So this is a nice one too. This is another one that I thought was really nicely designed. I didn't get to meet the person who made this poster, but they had let us put it up. And I believe it's from the other conference that was taking place at the same time. And I really like their consistent format. I like that your eye knows exactly where to go. Sometimes on posters, you walk up and you're like, where do I start? You know, you assume you start from left to right, you know, but this one, it's like, okay, here is the mentorship. Here's the models, you know, here's the communities and the zines that I talked about in my title. And then they give us 4 things here because what are the takeaways? What are we taking away from your research? What do you want them to know once they walk away? So this is a very nice design, good, consistent format, layout, font. The squares on top are all the same size. The rectangle on the bottom fits in the grid that's the same as the squares. Very nicely done. So where to begin? It can be overwhelming. Where do I even start? Well, first of all, ask yourself, according to NYU Libraries, they say, what is the most important, interesting, and astounding finding from my research project? That's good to know, because sometimes I'm like, let me tell you everything about my research project. And they don't want to know everything about your research project. Maybe later, if they're like really into your topic, you can talk to them separately. And then you can publish on it, you know. But what is the most interesting, important, astounding finding? How can I visually share my research with conference attendees? Should I use charts, graphs, photos, images? So we see some examples here. We have some photos, we have an infographic, we have some images, we've got some book covers, you know, so think about how graphically and photographically you're going to create visual interest with your board so it's not just words. You want to break up the text. And then what kind of information can I convey during my talk that will complement my poster? So when people wander up, are you just going to say, feel free to read it and let me know if you have any questions? I've seen people do that before, and I honestly kind of appreciate it because I was like, wait, let me read this. You're talking to me. So kind of fill out the situation, you know. If it seems like they want to come up and read it, give them the space to read it. And then if they, ask a question, be prepared to answer questions about your poster. Don't panic. If you don't know the answer to the question, say, that's really interesting. I'm going to look into that. I actually don't know, but that would be good continuing research for that. I want to, you know, you can always say stuff like that and no one's going to be like, you're a fraud. You shouldn't have this poster. You can't answer all my questions. They just won't do that. And if they do, that's their problem and they're rude. Okay, so it's not your problem. Software. NYU and my own personal experience, this is what we suggest. PowerPoint, a lot of people just, you know, design there in PowerPoint. And there's so many tutorials on YouTube. I could link them all here, but it would take many, many slides. So find something that works for you. I usually design on Canva using Canva. So if you have access to that, that's a great thing. I was just talking to Karina before everyone came in that anyone can wander up to Canva and drag and drop. And after maybe some blood, sweat, and tears, but not much, you know, you can come out with a professional product. I'm not a professional graphic designer, these slides are about as fancy as I get, but I am in charge of like the graphic design for our library and things like that, where we have actual graphic designers, students. So I know something about it, but I'm not professional at this. And I feel like Canva is a really nice one if you're new to design. Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, that's for you fancy people who know how to use those programs really well. And open source alternatives too are on the LibGuide that's linked here if you want more information about those open sources. And then there's many great guides. These are some of the NYU libraries listed, but I've often looked up guides. It seems like a lot of the big academic libraries have some sort of guide. And so I really appreciate that. A guide about academic posters, a guide about designing conference posters, creating an effective scientific poster, if you're helping someone do that or if you need to do it in the future. Poster presentations, designing effective posters. So there's good information out there if you want to follow another guide, there's some great resources, and these are some of them. So we want to get ready. We want to get ready to design. So we had those questions to think about to kind of get you started, but here's some other things to consider briefly. Audience. Who is this for and what are they interested in learning? If it's for Hawaii Library Association, okay, my audience is a bunch of very supportive librarians and they're interested in learning best practices and takeaways from my research that can benefit possibly their library, so what are they gonna, goes down to the bottom point of takeaway, but think about the audience, like who is your audience? When we designed for American Library Association, we were thinking this huge audience and all these people, and so we put a lot of information, but if I would have had the user in mind, the audience, I would have scaled back and made it more readable and concise for the audience, so that they could actually absorb the most salient information and not all the information. There was a word cloud on that really wordy poster that Haley and I created for ALA, and it wasn't clear. I didn't label it. Like, what are these words here? I should have said this word cloud was generated at the InfoLit conference with academic librarians from, just it's unclear to them. Like if they just wandered up without me standing there, they wouldn't have known what that was all about. I explained like, these are the things that came up when we asked librarians, but here's what we've found, so see what the audience can just wander up and find on their own. Relevance. Is the topic timely, on topic, and offering something new? If you're, sharing something that's maybe it's new to you, and that's okay because you have your own perspective. So you don't need to find a total gap in the literature, a total gap in the field, but you should be bringing something new to the conversation. And maybe the something new is your own individual perspective, your own institution and the students. I find that because BYU Hawaii is such an international school, with 70% being multilingual learners from international countries around the world, that's something new I can bring to conversations that, have been had maybe before, but they're new to me, and I'm applying it to a different type of population for our patrons. And so that's something that can be relevant to other people who work with a lot of multilingual learners too. So find your angle, find your in. Theme. What is the conference theme and how can you connect to it? So you don't have to be exactly on the theme. Right now, our undergraduate research conference theme is perseverance is power. It's a Japanese proverb. And so I don't expect the posters at our undergraduate research conference at BYU Hawaii to have like persevering in accounting, persevering in social work. I don't expect them to have that in their title. I think in order to get into a conference, many times I've tried to use words from the theme in at least my abstract, if not the title, but you really don't have to, as long as you can connect in some sort of way. And sometimes you just have a great idea that has really not a connection to the theme at all, and that's okay too. But think about that. And then takeaways. What do you want your audience to walk away knowing? So we saw some of the posters that had like 4 things at the bottom. These are the takeaways. I'll show you an example of mine in a little bit where I have best practices. Do this, find your way to graphically represent what they will be taking with them. after they leave your poster. So you can start simply. Oh, it rolled up for some reason, so you can't see the top of it. But anyway, this is the very first poster that Haley and I ever designed. It cuts off the title a little bit for some reason. I don't know why. But think about, what did we do well and how might we have improved? So we were first timers designing a poster. The only other time I designed a poster was a class in the LIS program where the teacher gave us the actual template for the poster that she wanted us to put together. And so I didn't have a template this time. We had to create our own. So we went on Canva, and Haley started it out by putting our title on the top. Again, it's a long title, oops. Putting our names easily readable, and then having the same size square 4 times there with our best practices. Here's what we want you to take away from our research. In a rectangle that fits the grid, right? It's very symmetrical. You want to try to be symmetrical as much as possible. You saw some other posters earlier at HLA though that I showed that don't have that same exact symmetry because there's a little more artsy and things like that, and that's okay too. But if you're starting out, it's great to just start with symmetry, start with consistency. You notice each of our smaller squares have the same size font for the headings, and they're underlined, and they have the purple on top. We didn't have images or graphics, so we put these little these little graphic images here to at least give it some interest. So think about it for a minute. What did we do well? We made this on Canva. We tried to pick a readable font. We tried to pick a color that was pleasing. We tried to be on topic that year for what ALA's theme was. But what could we have improved upon? Any suggestions? I haven't been looking at the chat. Are you saying anything I need to know? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, incorporate more colors, a bit more visually engaging, different colors. Someone said we had good, easy to read bullets and clear organization. Great graphics to relate to the headings. Yeah, so those are some things we did well and improve. I agree. You know, I don't know if they needed all the words that we included there. Maybe we could have shortened the future directions and put it on the bottom somewhere maybe, and we could have had like an infographic there on that square or an image or something like that, you know. Maybe for the heading color, instead of sticking with the purple, we could have done like a contrasting color or something like that, just to make it a little more interesting. Yeah, and the initial name too. More bolded titles instead of underlining. Yeah, I agree. If we could go back, we would do all those things. So you guys are good. A+. Yes, your eyes do generally know where to go, like pivot, methods, discussion, future. Usually sometimes, so the conference theme, I believe, was pivot. And so instead of saying like abstract or intro there, we talked about pivot, like what is our project and how does it relate to the theme is because the conference theme was pivot, I believe. So, all right, let's go to, oh yeah, so that simple poster though, you never know what might come from a simple design. If you're like, I'm not a designer, I don't know how to do it, start simply, my friend. Don't feel like you have to be fancy. This is not fancy, you know, we just put it together. You got to start somewhere, and you never know what might come from a simple design. This poster, it was COVID, so we, instead of presenting at ALA, this poster, we submitted it, and then they wanted a 7-minute video of us talking without our like faces or anything, just like people would press play and they would hear us talking about our poster. That's how we presented that year. I believe it was 2021 maybe, or 2022 maybe. Yeah, 2022. And so I remember that we almost missed the deadline for the recording. And I was like, oh gosh, I'll do the recording. Don't worry about it. And I just got on my computer in my bedroom during COVID and was like, okay, so the theme is pivot, da 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 da. And I just kind of took them through. And I would be embarrassed probably to listen to it now. I'd probably be like, oof, I could have done with a run through or a dress rehearsal or something. But someone from an editor, a member of the editorial team from the Journal of Electronic Resources Librarianship, watched our video and was interested in our topic and thought it was relevant to their peer-reviewed journal. And they asked us to submit for peer review. So it wasn't a guarantee that we'd get in because, of course, they take off, your name and things like that. But we always wanted to write an article from this idea and this research that we had done. In fact, we presented this at an HLA conference, and then we turned it into a poster, and then it turned into a peer-reviewed article. So you just never know. All that research, we were able to write up for peer review and submit it, and it got accepted in their volume 34 in 2022. And so we got an article from it, which is really exciting. So you never know what your simple little design, what can come of it. It did the job. So don't be afraid to try different things as you learn to improve along the way. I have two pictures here. One you've seen before and one you saw a little glimpse of before. Both have a lot of information that I needed to share. Both have a lot of words that I felt needed to be on the poster. Both have a very long title. But this one was a little catchier. Nevertheless, she persisted and finally gained access to old library social media accounts. So I had gone through this whole process when I came on at BYU Hawaii of inheriting 6 social media accounts across 3 different platforms, and I only had the password to one of the 6. And not really through fault of anyone. It happens at a lot of institutions. I found it actually from presenting at the conference, where you come on and whoever started the social media started on their personal Gmail, and maybe a student worker kept it up and changed the password and then graduated, and so things happen. Or someone starts something and we're like, who started this and how do we shut it down? So I took them through the process and the results of closing down the extra accounts, making sure we just had one account on each platform. And this is before X. We don't use Twitter or X anymore now that it's X, but back then we had that account. And making sure that they were consistent branding across all platforms, making sure that we had access to all of them, and shutting down the extra accounts. So we just had one per platform. So I knew that, how do I represent this on a poster though? I thought I'd be doing a presentation about it, and instead they said they wanted a poster. And I thought, how do I talk about this? So I took a little blurb for each one and I put the words in text box there graphically and took them through with lines, tell them where to go with their eyes. And then at the bottom, I had my game plan, and then I had my suggested process on the bottom too, so that's information they could take with them. And then that QR code there would take them to our library social media accounts, to our link tree, essentially. It's a campsite bio where they could have access to all of the accounts and see them for themselves, So this I, presented at this conference, and I was just thinking, oh, I don't know. I had a line all the way down. People wanted to know because they had this exact issue and they wanted to know what research, it took them to got the result to get access to these accounts and shut some down that needed to be shut down. So, don't be afraid to try new things along the way. I'm really pleased with the other design. It probably has maybe not as many words as the one on the left, but it still has a lot of words, but I found a way to break it up graphically. And yeah, Jess says she likes the use of dots as directors. Yeah, I found a way to direct them a little bit better, to use different colors. The first one that we did was just purple, purple, purple. I found ways to use colors that go together, but maybe like an ombre of the process, and just a way to, the BYU library is in the background, so it gives them a little insight to the environment and things like that, but it was light enough that they could still read the font. So yeah, still quite a few words on there, but broken up graphically and in a way that if I wasn't standing by that poster, they could walk up and still pretty much understand what is this project about. But it was really fun to stand there too and engage with people. So that's I didn't want to spend too much time talking your ear off. I wanted to know if you have any questions. And there's my email address, by the way. Um, if you want to reach out, I know that we're all busy and my schedule's really busy too, but if possible, if you're working on it and you want me to take a look or you just want to ask something via email, that's my email address as well. I'm happy to help in that way. But any questions so far? And while you're thinking, I want to come and look at your chat for a little bit here since I didn't read it originally. Yeah, Jennifer says ALA is hard to get into. It can be. And I think the best way to try to get in at first is a poster if you need to present. Our library doesn't normally send people to conferences unless you're presenting. And so I was nervous about getting into the actual conference. And in 2023, I did present twice at the conference, but in 2022 and 2021, the way we got, dipped our toe in the pond, cut our teeth, so to speak, was through the poster session. So that's a nice entry point. They recognize Catherine. Not sure if it seems to work in the space. Yes, organize with the boxes. Oh, thank you. Color choice is very important. Let's see, what else do we have here?
I
Yeah,
think what you mentioned at the end, Stephanie, was key. Like that's the sweet spot. Your poster is supposed to like be an aid because you're the presenter standing next to the poster, but you want to have enough info on there that someone can get the content if you're not there.
yeah, exactly. Um, There is, okay, so someone said, can you talk a little bit about bringing, oh yeah, there's my email address. Thank you. Um, can you talk a little about bringing your digital ideas to life and printing? Yes. So once you design it digitally, you need to look at the conference website and see what size they want their posters to be printed at. When I presented at LMCC, the one with the social media poster, I couldn't find anywhere where they had the dimensions for the poster. And so when I was trying to size it from Canva, I was struggling and I had to write the conference room. And I said, oh yeah, we didn't provide those dimensions. And good thing they did. They also didn't provide information about how it would be tacked up online when we got there in person. And so I printed it in on that like banner material because when we're traveling from Hawaii, it's a little harder to bring your poster. My husband has brought a big tube, on the airplane before as a carry-on, and but I like to print it on the canvas like banner material because then I just fold it up and put it in my suitcase and take it to the conference. And usually you have a board that sometimes you have to bring your own tacks too. So make sure you read the small print because one time someone didn't bring tacks and I shared my thumbtacks with her for the board. But usually you put them up like that. When I went to LMCC, they were planning on us doing like foam core board poster. And so the other people had that, but they didn't specify that. They didn't say what type. And I just assumed every poster session I had been to, you put them up. At HLA, we have easels just like they had at LMCC. And so you would want foam core board. You wouldn't want to do a thin poster. So, but here at BYU Hawaii, we put them up with magnets. So you wouldn't want a foam core board. You would want a thin poster. So you really need to pay attention to dimensions and what type of material they want it printed on. And then most universities, I know there's like Kinko's and things like that, and Office Max and Office Depot, things like that do print. But most college campuses as well, universities have a print services. So I print mine through our print services and they always do a really nice job here at BYU Hawaii. And I know UH has similar too. So probably better than ours. I don't know. But yeah, so just look into what material type, what are the dimensions for sure, because that was kind of embarrassing. You can kind of see from that when I showed you that last picture of me presenting at LMCC, it's kind of like rigged up on this like easel and kind of like hanging in the wind. It worked, but there was a moment of panic when I realized that one of these things is not like the others and it's me. So, the other thing that someone had asked was, let's see, what tips you have for standing out in a crowded poster session, either through the poster itself or through the body stance. Yes. Okay, so this is actually kind of funny. I always bring, not always, but a lot of times when I come to conferences, I bring these little outreach bags from our library, and they usually have like Hawaiian chocolates in them. And I had some of those with me that I was going to give some of my colleagues that I interact with or do research with sometimes if I saw them. And I saw that some people, because sometimes they'll give you a little table. At HLA, there aren't tables, but sometimes they'll give you a little table. And I saw people had like candy and handouts and things like that. So always make sure, no matter where you're going to present, that you know, is there a little table? If so, oh my gosh, everyone went to of course, the posters with the candy in front. So, but then I noticed the last time that I was at a poster session at ALA, they didn't have any room for tables. So that's not always a thing. But if you have something to help you stand out, maybe you're holding a little takeaway with you, if you want, like a little handout or something like that, that's not required. Otherwise, most poster sessions, like the one at HLA, you'll be standing next to your easel. Make sure you're dressed nicely, professionally, reflecting, yourself and how you want to be represented professionally. And just be open, just be open, make eye contact when appropriate, smile, nod at people, be like, hey, this is my poster. I can take you through it a little bit, or if you just want to read and ask some questions, that's fine too. And then usually if you're answering questions and engaging with someone and someone else wanders up, kind of get a sense, use your discernment there of like, oh, they might join your conversation, or they might use the opportunity of you being engaged with someone else to read your poster. And so it's just kind of on a case-by-case basis, but be prepared for both. Maybe just give them the option, say, hey, this is my topic. If you want me to take you through it, I can. If you just want to read and ask some questions, let me know, and they'll let you know. So that's how I would recommend that. But it did make me laugh when I saw the candy at ALA, and those were the boards that everyone was going up to. And so luckily in my bag, I had some of those Hawaiian chocolates, and I hurried and put them on. So do you have any suggestions around interactive posters, for example, soliciting responses from participants via Post-its? Absolutely. I saw that at one of the posters at ALA. Someone had Post-its and they wanted people to give their response to like their research question or their best practice at their library and put them around the poster. And I thought that was so cool and really gave like an interactive factor, especially like if you were to leave the poster, people would still be able to interact with it if you were able to leave those materials there. They might have even hooked on the Post-it note to like their poster for people to just take off. So that was pretty cool. And there were some that had like QR codes, and they wanted people to have responses that then everyone who did the QR code had access to all the responses, so if you want to do that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of the name. We do it a lot at our conferences here where everyone kind of goes onto the board and there's lots of responses, and I cannot think of the name of that program right now, but that's a really fun one. Is someone telling me right now in the comments? Yeah. So, yes, Karina has shared with me that we also have the poster sessions through Scholar Space. So let's see, I'm going to click on that right here, and I'm going to share screen. Here it is. So when you present at HLA, your poster can go into Scholar Space, which is really nice because there's one of mine right there. That's so funny. See, we took the same exact poster design, Zoya and I did, the purple one that my friend and I had done, because I was like, oh, should we do one at HLA? Oh gosh, okay, well, I have this poster design. And so, for fear of like, no, I don't know what else to do, we used it and it worked just fine. And we put a graphic there, in the center so that it was a little bit more intriguing to the eye. But here's some really nice posters, and it's nice to be able to have this in Scholar Space because you can link it then, to your CV, and you can have it if you need it for part of tenure and promotion. Or just have linked to your CV, or if you just want to come on here and see what are some ideas that people have done at HLA in the past. My first time, this was a very helpful resource because I just didn't even know what are some ideas, like what has been done in the past. So that was really, really helpful. Um, yeah, it's a really good collection. I think there was one more question. Oh, I wasn't thinking of mural, but that's a good one too. It's I'm gonna think of it the minute that the webinar is over, and I'll be like, everybody, I'm sorry. But you'll see it a lot at conferences where it's like a board essentially where people can ask questions and everyone can answer, or you can upload an image, or you can upload, and I cannot think of the name of it right now. That's gonna drive me crazy. What suggestions do you have for students in the LIS program who may be considering putting together their first poster for a professional conference? Any way to make it feel less intimidating? Yes. I proposed something my first semester in 2020 maybe or something. I can't remember because maybe we didn't even have a conference then. But I panicked at the last second and backed out because so I feel you if you're nervous, okay? But don't back out. It's okay. You have many of us to help you, and you've seen that yours can be really quite dull and still get into the conference. I mean, look at this one right here by me, okay? So so just anything's better than this. Um but I would say hop on Scholar Space here and take a look at some things that have been done, and then reach out to your professors. The reason why I helped Catherine is because I was her professor in community engagement a summer before that poster session, and I had mentioned to them that they should do the poster session and I'd be happy to help. And I was so happy to help. I was so glad that she reached out, even though it had been a semester or so since I had taught her class. And she showed me her poster and she was like embarrassed about it. And I was like, why? And I looked at it and I said, oh, well, here's like 5 quick things that you can do to make it like more what you're hoping for, what you mentioned that you wanted. And she was like, oh yeah. And then she showed me the finished product and I was like, perfect, so sometimes it just takes like a second person, a mentor or a faculty member, or even a colleague, a peer. I did my first poster session with Haley, my second one with Zoya, my third one with Haley, and my fourth one by myself, and so don't go it alone if you're worried about it. It's always good to work together. Me and Haley have like a weekly time that we meet on Zoom, even though she's in New York. Every single week. Sometimes we take off if we're having a break that week or if we've got a lot going on, but for the most part, we meet on Zoom to work on something. And it's really nice because I don't have to stress. I don't have to stress like, when are we going to get that poster done? I'm like, oh, Monday at 9 a.m. We'll get the poster, we'll get the first thing and we'll work right then and there. And then we'll have some steps for next time that we may or may not get done before we see each other the next time, but we'll have that appointment every time to get it done. So I would say start simply, simple designs. Don't be embarrassed to have a simple design, and talk to mentors and teachers and peers that you trust and collaborate. When in doubt, collaborate until you feel more comfortable. Okay, if I miss any questions? Check. Padlet. Yes. 10 points to Kristen. Padlet. That's what I was thinking of. It was not coming to my brain. I was thinking Canopy because I was just helping a patron find something on our streaming. And I'm like, no, it's not Canopy. That's what I was doing right before I came here. And Canopy just kept coming in my head. Padlet. Thank you. But Miro is also very good. Yeah, there's a couple different resources that you can use. Oh, thanks, Jessica. Yeah, when in doubt, just kind of go through these steps and talk to people that you trust and start simply, and you'll be just fine. You'll do great. And it's a great experience. You don't have to be, and the last thing I want to say is you don't have to be done with your research either. Rarely have I been totally done with a research project when I've presented a poster. And that's kind of the beauty of poster sessions, is that you engage with conversations about your research, even if you're midway through your research and you get feedback, and that can help. Those conversations have shaped the direction that I took my research next, like, oh, so-and-so from the law library mentioned this, and so from UH or West Oahu mentioned this because they had experience with that. And I'm going to go think of those things now as I finish up my research. And so it's really helpful. I think that's part of the reason why I panicked the first time I got into a poster session for HLA and canceled because I thought I had to be totally done with my research, even though I'm sure they told me I didn't have to be. I used to be more of an overachiever than I am now. And now I'm like, what can we do in the time that we have? And I found that it's actually sometimes better that way. So you get in those conversations with people about your research even midway through, and that helps the direction of where you go next. How often do poster sessions have more than one person working on it? Oh, often. Yeah. It's very common. I've never seen a poster session where it's just one person. Although HLA, did people collaborate? I can't remember last year. It seemed like there was one person standing by every poster, but there might have been a few collaborations. But every other poster session I've attended has had multiple people. And sometimes at BYU Hawaii, there will be like 8 students doing a poster together on their project from their anthropology class, and it's awesome. It's great. I don't necessarily suggest that many people, but it's really common to have a partner or even a small research team. Yeah, I agree, Sarah. You sometimes starting on your own, oof, yeah. Haley, if you guys still do Slack in the LIS program, Haley had written like, hey, who wants to do the InfoLit conference? I've never really done a conference before. And I'm like, oh, I've done a conference before. I could work with you. I didn't even know her. And I'm so glad. That was so serendipitous because now she and I work together every single week, all year long. And when she visits home, we go out to dinner, and we have a peer review publication together. Like, she's amazing. And so that was so wonderful, a huge blessing in my life to have that lifelong collaboration. And it's richer ideas too, because when it's just your ideas, sometimes it's a very narrow viewpoint. But when you have more voices, it's even layered experience in really interesting ways that it wouldn't have been otherwise. Any other questions before we wrap up? Oh, there's Kristen's poster right there. Advocating for Hawaii's children's book, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. She always credits me because I did like one assignment with her in the beginning of her thinking about this project, and it laid some sort of foundation, and she gives me credit. She's so nice. But really, she's done all the hard work with those other names right there. That team is amazing. They do good stuff. Okay. Thanks, Kristen. You're so nice to me. Well, if there's no other questions, I'm available anytime. If you want to, briefly Zoom, I'll try to make it happen, and I'll be really, really happy. Oh, I like what Jennifer said. Sorry, I got to include this too about making sure you pick a topic that you're really passionate about. Yeah, because doing research is painful, but it's not as painful if you're very passionate about the subject and very interested in it, because then it's like a treasure hunt and you want to find all the sources and you want to find the answers, and you're bursting to tell people what you found because you want to help them with what you found. And so that certainly helps, and it comes through. You can see it when people are like, this is my project. I see it a lot at our undergraduate conference because their teachers make them do it. And they're like, so yeah, let me know. But at conferences where this is like our pet nerdy geek topic that we're obsessed with, we're almost mentally ill. We've thought about it so much. It's really fun. It's really fun to see that passion come through. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for having me. It's a pleasure.